Welcome everybody to another video. It's your boy, Poke of Wall Street, aka spoilers ahead. So don't watch if you don't want it spoiled. Although it really doesn't matter. Film's very predictable now that I think about it. But either way, let's talk about Endgame. It's all gonna be spoiled. I'm gonna go through the film, things that I liked, things that I didn't like, things that could have been better, things that were better, blah 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 blah. Okay, so for context and why I'm a bit jaded with the film, and why I gave it a meh rating, it's because it became really predictable. A year ago, after Infinity War, I was talking with some friends and we were theorizing about what could have happened in Endgame, and I think I was the only guy that said maybe they go back in time. Right, they use Ant-Man's quantum travel stuff. They go back in time and they, in the comics they've done this before. They go back in time. They can probably grab the Infinity Stones, create their own Infinity Gauntlet, and kind of reverse everything that Thanos did. And then I said, it makes sense if Iron Man did the final snap, because he's the guy who started this whole thing, and it would be interesting if he's the guy that ends it. And then again, that was pretty much the whole plot for the film, so I kind of guessed it a year ago, which meant that, you see, I try to avoid as many spoilers as I possibly could, meaning that I did not watch any of the trailers, and I did not watch any of the behind-the-scenes interviews that they did, except when it was forced upon me. I was browsing through Instagram, and then I see, boom, there it is. There's a still image of one of the trailers that I was avoiding, and it's the group of Avengers, and they're all wearing pin particle suits. So there goes my theory, proven correct. And then Iron Man and the Wasp comes out, and, I see it, and Scott Lang gets stuck in the quantum realm, and that's like, okay, there goes my theory, and now it's proven that he's gonna appear like either in the past or at the right time, but it's gonna be no time passed at all for him, and they're gonna be like, time travel. Yes, that's exactly what they did. And then when I went to go watch Shazam, a really fun and enjoyable film as well, you know what happened right before the movie started? Like right before the movie started, they played a couple interviews with the cast of Endgame, and some like B-roll of behind the scenes, not showing much, but showing just enough. And the trailers that I was trying to avoid, all of them played, and I got kind of miffed at the fact that they were playing, and I'm like, well, I thought I was watching a DC film. I was gonna be safe, but no, I was not. Okay, let's get on to the film and what happens. This is all extreme spoilers. Who knew Thanos could win twice, right? I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's what we said when we walked out of the movie. We had a group of friends, and then we come out and we're like, who knew Thanos could win twice? Either way, the film starts, and it's very, very sad and hopeless moment, right? Iron Man and Nebula are stuck in space. They're running low on oxygen. They're gonna die, pretty much. It's a given. They've got 48 hours or 24 hours until they die, and it's very emotional. It's been building up for a year. We either want this and they need to get it, and if they don't survive, they're dead, and they get saved instantly. There is no stakes. You think that they're going to get lost forever in space? No. Captain Marvel shows up. There are no stakes. She kind of deflates the situation in the sense of, like, you think that something big is going to happen, and then Captain Marvel just shows up and solves all the problems, which is a big bummer. I mean, they showed this in the trailer, right? They showed Captain Marvel floating in front of the ship. So they've spoiled the way that Iron Man and Nebula return in the trailers, which is why I avoided it. And then they show it, and it's like, well, you could have done something about this, right? So much for a film with consequences and a film that's different, right? It's pretty much just plot convenience, and how many Deus Ex Machinas can we get as quickly as possible, right? Like, first off, we're going to be dealing with a lot of time travel stuff in here, and it can get really confusing and stupid. So if you have your own theory about time travel, feel free to write it in the comment section or on the spoilers discussion in the Discord channel, link in the description. We can talk about all the spoiler stuff there if you want to avoid spoiling it for other people. Yeah, so Iron Man and Nebula get rescued right after making a whole speech about how they're going to die and they're losing hope. And that was really dumb. And nothing happens and nothing of consequence was lost because we all knew Pepper Potts was alive because we saw it on the posters. So it's not like we think she's dead or anything like that, but, you know, perfectly fine. Iron Man is a jaded person. He's very frustrated that Captain America disappeared after a civil war, and he's very mad at him. But then you also got to realize that Iron Man chose specifically not to call for Captain America's help, right? It was I think was it Bruce Banner who was trying to call at the time or something like that. You know, whatever it was, Iron Man chose not to do it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's his own fault, which kind of makes no sense. But now he's blaming Captain America with rights, you know, blame the guy who did not show up to the battle, right? I would have liked it if they continued on with this, if they spent, you know, a third of the film trying to get Iron Man back, trying to rescue him. Maybe don't do the whole, we got 48 hours left to live, and maybe do it, you know, a period of time before that. I think they were out in space for 27 days. I'm not sure if it was 27 days exactly, but you can do a lot of things. You know, you can say, oh, we've got 2 weeks until we survive, and then everybody else on Earth is like, how long do they have? We don't know. We're estimating a week or something like that. And then it's a race to the finish. Scott Lang comes out of the quantum realm, and he's like, hey, kids, we can time travel, but we need a smart person. And the only smart person that can solve this problem is in space. And they're trying to rescue Iron Man, and they finally rescue Iron Man. I don't know if they finally contact Captain Marvel or if Captain Marvel needs to go traveling throughout space, looking everywhere at the same time. Who knows how they do it, why they do it, but make it more like it's like there's stakes to this, like they're running against the clock, like they need to save them, rather than just drop Captain Marvel when you don't want to do anything that requires too much risk. And there it goes, all the risk flies away. So yeah, they get saved in the first 10 minutes of the film, after building it up to be the last hope, and then Iron Man doesn't want to help anybody, and 5 years pass, when you could have done a whole lot of stuff with this. Same pieces of the film, you could just done a lot more. But no, 5 years pass, Captain America is now a therapist. And Natasha is like the new head of the Avengers. She's pretty much just in contact with all the people. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Captain Marvel is trying to solve all the universe's problems, so that's why she's not going to appear for the rest of the film until the end. So much for her being the most important part of the film and the reason they defeat Thanos, which she isn't. So why bother putting her in the film at all when you could have had a much better film without her, which meant, you know, you could have had stakes and something of importance. So, you know, governments crashed because there's only 50% of the population. It was a very sad moment where War Machine talks about, you know, wait a second. Do Nebula and War Machine have a thing going on? Or was this just like bait? Because nothing ever happens from it. They don't show anything. They just show they're kind of friendly, and that's it. Maybe that's all Nebula can get herself to do, but it was like, it was just friendly, and it was kind of confusing since nothing came out of it, but they were like playing it like they were together, but they're not, you know. It's weird. Yeah, War Machine says after everybody leaves the holographic conference that Barton, Mr. Hawkeye himself, has gone rogue and is killing tons of people, tons of criminals, and Natasha has an emotional moment because at the beginning of the film we see what sets up some crazy good backstory. That's, you know, of Hawkeye at a family picnic, and he, you know, sees the consequences of the snap, and his entire family disappears. So he becomes a suicidal dude who wants to kill bad guys without caring about the risk of his own life, right? So, you know, they're trying to assemble a team, right? They're looking for Hawkeye, who's gone rogue, and Captain America shows up, and he's a therapist again, to Natasha, and they get a video conference call. Well, they get a like doorbell ring thing call, and it's Ant-Man, because he was in the quantum realm for 5 hours, but in reality, in our world, in our timeline, it was 5 years. So he was just there waiting, and he popped out of nowhere when a rat accidentally stepped on a button, which I find it really funny, because that's how the whole thing plays. There's like, it's not like some scientists were trying to figure out, or Captain America. They all know, everybody knows Scott Lang. Like, all the Avengers know what he's capable of, that he's capable to become super small. And you wouldn't put them for dead, or if they did, if you did think they were dead, and you could have the opportunity to take the technology, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you just take that miniaturizing and the technology, so that you could probably like miniaturize some super high tech for your next fight against Thanos? For the next fight against Thanos, right, at the beginning of the film, this is how like unmemorable the whole film is. I watched it on Saturday and I already forget the stupid parts. They kill Thanos at the beginning. Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones because they're like, wow, Captain Marvel showed up out of nowhere, we can defeat Thanos. And they defeat Thanos super easily. He's weakened by the trying to destroy the stones, which causes a lot of questions if you think about it. And yeah, they defeat him. Thor gets really sad and chops his head off. And he aimed for the head, and the whole audience went wild. And I'm like, they killed the guy they could have questioned, who was really weak. He has no arm. He's super weakened. You have super powerful Captain Marvel. You can do so many things out of this, but you choose to kill him. Okay, fine. So now everybody's very sad and everybody's very frustrated. Yeah, Scott Lang comes back and he's like, oh, time travel, we can do the time travel if we just go 88 miles an hour. You know, pretty basic Back to the Future shenanigans. And they're trying to figure out how they can do it, and they're like, oh, what we need is Tony Stark's help. So they go to Tony Stark, who we see has a daughter. He's moved on. He's like the only mature guy in the whole thing. He realizes they've lost. He's moved on. He's got a family. He did everything he wanted to do. And they're like, Tony Stark, we have a time travel machine. You're smart enough. Make it with us. If we make it, we can go back in time and make it so that none of this ever happened. And you're like, do you have zero context awareness? He has a kid. Of course he doesn't want to do this. He wants to keep the kid alive, which is going to cause a lot more problems in the future. So he's got a kid. He doesn't want to do it. He gets pretty mad at them. They go back and they're looking for Hulk or Bruce Banner, because he's another smart boy who, I don't know how he would have any qualifications to do this, which he doesn't. They go talk to him. It turns out he accepted. He's Professor Hulk now. He is Bruce Hulk, Bruce Banner Hulk, Bruce Hulk Banner, Hulk Bruce Banner, whatever it is. He's that guy. And I didn't see this coming, but you know, it's happened before in the comics, so nothing crazy out of here. He's a superstar, even though now that I think about it, he did absolutely nothing in the entirety of Infinity Wars other than wear Iron Man's suit, so nobody would know who he is if he fought in the battle. And everybody loves him. Everybody's like, oh, Mr. Hulk, take out my picture and give me an autograph. That was really weird, because 50% of the population died, and he's signing autographs as the guy who didn't do anything to stop it, right? As far as everybody knows, he did nothing, right? But sure, yeah, he signs autographs. He signs up. He's on board to help it. help them, and he does. He helps them, and Scott Lang becomes Baby Man. Ha 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 ha! Scott Baby Man, Scott Old Man, Scott Baby Man again. Pretty basic stuff. They get Iron Man, and the whole thing of like, well, I can't not help people, so I have to help them. And he solves the whole time travel shenanigan, GPS for the quantum realm. He solves it, and you have a really cute scene between him and his daughter. Love you 3000, blah blah blah. He obviously starts speeding his way and joins the Avenger group, and again, Tony Stark classic thing. Be cool dude, smartest man in the universe. So he's in there. He's in it to win it. They're there to help. Scott Lang is eating a taco. That was really funny scene. I liked how Nebula was still, still thinking herself to be the smartest woman, robot lady, person, alien in the world, and the most dominant. So she just calls everybody an idiot and stuff. But then again, is she with War Machine? We don't know. Who cares, right? They don't never fully commit to anything in this film, other than to remove characters whose contracts are over, which means there's no commitment, no consequences. It seemed very interesting to me, but they're assembling all the Avengers, so they've got Rocket Raccoon, War Machine, and Nebula drop by, and we see that Scott Lang is still just Scott Lang, whose taco contents fly off when a ship lands in front of him. He gets called an idiot, and then Hulk gives him 2 Hulk tacos, and it's good stuff. Moon and Hulk go over to help Mr. Thor. They try to get him on board to go back in time and fix everything, and we meet with the rest of the Asgardians, which was kind of nice to see. Like, oh, they all lived. Some of them, 50% of them, some of them survived, and Valkyrie was one of them, so that's good. And my name is Kog, and Meeks, they both lived as well. And here comes one of the problems that I had with the film, one of the major problems. It was funny to see Thor as a fat, drunken loser who's given up hope in life, and he's become the dude, but with less weed and more beer. And they're trying to convince him to come over, but they're playing Fortnite, and oof, if this is gonna date this film, oof. And then obviously the kids in the back, they were like, "Oh my god, you played Fortnite!" And it's like, well, this may be funny now, as long as Thor or Korg doesn't do freaking floss or something like that. And they don't, but they have a really funny part where Thor, insults Noob Destroyer 69, which was a really funny gamer joke. Haha, gamers. And jokes about parents' basements, while Thor obviously has recluded himself into a basement. Funny, self-aware things. And this joke is never going to be funny again. Fortnite is not going to be funny again. And moving on, they convince him. He's like, okay, I'll join, but he's still, drinking tons of alcohol. What other things happen? They have it set. They have limited amounts of PIM particles, so they can only do 2 trial test runs, but then funny joke happens and they can only do 1 test run. I didn't know that increasing in size and decreasing in size instantly made you lose 1 whole vial of PIM particles, unless what he's saying is that he actually went fully into the quantum realm, traveled through time, came back, and that's how he consumed his last PIM particles. Who cares? If he did that, then they wouldn't need any other test runs, right? Hawkeye's obviously suicidal maniac. He's obviously murdered tons of people, and Natasha finally convinces him to come over. What other things happen? Oh, he offers himself as a test dummy. The experiment works. He goes back in time to his house with his family, and he's about to see them again. He grabs a baseball glove from the floor. He's like, "Oh, kids, I love you." And then, poof, he gets poofed back, and he has the glove. So it's like, oh, we prove it. We went back in time. We picked something from back in time, and we have it in our world. Other than that, nothing. It's fine, cool character building moment. They're brainstorming how they can get all the Infinity Stones from the past. But again, they don't say why they do it. If they want to use the Infinity Stones to create an Infinity Gauntlet. But then again, you create an Infinity Gauntlet to snap away your problems. Are you any better than Thanos, right? Whatever it is. I mean, if you're trying to do the time travel thing of, if we go back in time and take the weapons from them, they won't have the weapons, so we win. But then that causes the problem of your timeline. In your timeline, you've got the things. In that timeline, they've got the other things, It's ridiculous. Time travel is the stupidest thing. If you're not going to make a film specifically, or content of media specifically dealing with the consequences of time travel, and you're just going to say, brush it off, it's a film, guys, don't think too much about it. Time travel is stupid and is the easiest cop-out answer ever, and it's the one way that you can guarantee yourself a Deus Ex Machina for everything. So they split up the teams. There's 3 Infinity Stones at one point in time in New York. The Time Stone, the Tesseract, and the Mind Stone. I think the Tesseract is the Space Stone or something. Yeah, whatever it is, right? There's 3 of them, so Hulk, Ant-Man, Captain America, and Iron Man are going there so they can get it at that place. Then you've got Hawkeye, Natasha, War Machine, and Nebula, who are going into space. Nebula and War Machine are trying to get the Power Stone at the same time that Quill, Chris Pratt, was doing his old dance routine, so they're gonna get it there. Natasha and what is it called? Natasha and Hawkeye, they're going to the Soul Stone where Red Skull is, but it's not the original actor of Red Skull. It's just another dude who they got to play Red Skull. Oh, right, and then Thor and Rocket Raccoon are going to Asgard at the time of one of the most boring Thor films, Thor 2, where Natalie Portman is Lady Friend, who has the ether inside of her. So they're trying to extract it. And funny stuff happens, they all go back in time. Great. Why back in time? Why time travel? Why any of this at all? Why the easiest cop-out answer that can create no consequences? And there's no consequences at all. So, in between problems with the time travel, one of the best scenes of all time that everybody is going to say this is the best thing ever was when Captain America said "Hail Hydra," to convince the Hydra members to let him take the Mind Stone. He has a fight with his past self, who thinks he's Loki, but then he's like, Loki is alive, and then, zaps him to sleep. So that causes a lot of problems in that timeline. What's going on? How are we doing this time travel? They were talking about timelines. Hulk goes to talk to the Ancient One, and they're talking about timelines, and they're like, well, if you remove the Infinity Stones from the timeline, you're going to have problems. And it's like, okay, because, then Dormammu destroys the world if you take the Time Stone, so you've got to return it before you left, right? Which causes even more problems, because you're going to have 3 versions of yourself. You're going to have Captain America from the past, Captain America from the present doing the taking, and Captain America from the future doing the returning. That's a lot of Captain Americas. I don't know, man. It was interesting, but you get so many questions, like when Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones. But then the Ancient One is like, the Infinity Stones are there to maintain the flow of time. They keep... But there are no more Infinity Stones. But aren't they like forces of nature? Why? Why Infinity Stones? Why do the things they say not make sense with the things they say and do? there's no consequence to taking the Infinity Stones because there's no consequence to mind stoning your past self. There's no consequence to going back in time and living your life with the love of your life. And then... Wait a second. If Captain America went back in time to live his life with Peggy, and Captain America... and Peggy dies, and Captain America goes to her funeral... Was Captain America at the funeral too? Or did he know that he himself was going to be in the funeral, so he chose not to go to the funeral because he had already been to the funeral? Does he not love her enough to go to a funeral twice? Or does he only think that if he goes to the funeral, he's going to cause some space-time continuum problems? Did Captain America avoid any hero work after he went back in time? Did he like fully retire? He's a super soldier with a super soldier serum, with a moral... justice standard really high. Did he avoid doing any, did he become... Oh, that's just... Wait a second. Everybody knew what Captain America looks like. Would they have no issues with a Captain America that surprisingly, miraculously appeared? A dude that looks exactly like Captain America, who's extremely friggin' strong, and morally just, appearing out of nowhere with the girl who used to date Captain America? Does nobody ask questions in this universe? Wait a second, which universe? Because that never happened in our timeline, unless it did, and they never told us. Wait a second, because Loki never disappeared with the Tesseract, but they returned it before they took it. So did that Loki return not have the Tesseract because they returned it, but he did because he took it? You entered problems of causation and correlation. You did something you went back in time to do something. Therefore, you did, to stop yourself from going back in time. Imagine you go back in time to stop yourself from going back in time. Okay, you stopped yourself from going back in time, but now you, who went back in time, exist there. There's two versions of yourself. What happens now? That's kind of what happened with Captain America. He went back in time, and there's two Captain Americas. One's in the eyes, one's living his life. And it's very confusing. What is going on, man? This movie raises so many questions, so many of them, and none of them are ever answered. And it's kind of like, haha, dude, time travel in films, it's just silly stuff. Don't think about it. What do you mean, don't think about it? This film is like the biggest thing since sliced bread. And even sliced bread had a cameo in the film. It was peanut butter sandwich. I mean, the plot of the film just gets more and more problematic the more time travel they do. It's not enough that they go back in time and beat up Peter Quill, so he never gets that Peter Quill never meets with Gamora, so he never falls in love with her because that Gamora also is taken into our universe, to our timeline, and she appears there. And our Peter Quill, when he's returned, he's in love with her, but she's nowhere near. So that's going to be the plot of Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Then we already know what's going to happen. It's just a quest to try and get... But where's Adam Warlock in all of this? What's going on? Why Captain Marvel and not Adam Warlock? They're both stupidly strong, but we already set up the origin of one in a past film. We don't have to create a film that's boring and bland and has no context and substance to it and just kind of ruins the whole Nick Fury shenanigans. Okay, just relax. Yeah, whatever. This film kind of has a lot of problems because you introduce time travel. You're gonna have so many things you need to neatly tie up. Like, time travel can cause so many problems. That's why The Flash has so many reboots and resets, because he's the guy who causes time travel, and you can be like, well, he did the time travel thing, therefore we have a new universe. But in Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you introduce time travel, you're gonna make it sure, it was really well done, really good, easy to follow, but they're hoping you never ask any questions, right? They're hoping that you never ask what's going on and what are the consequences. So much for a film with real consequences, right? Like, not only is it a cop-out to have Captain Marvel and time travel, but it's Captain Marvel and time travel, and don't ask any questions about it. So you at the beginning, the whole setup of Iron Man in space gets solved in no time. Captain Marvel kind of kills the whole stakes of the situation. They're playing the plot exactly how I predicted it a year ago. So I'm in the cinema like, okay, I already know what's going on. Can we get this over with? Let's rest assured they get all the stones. They need to get the Tesseract and more Pym particles because they lose the Tesseract because Iron Man gets smashed in the face by Hulk by accident. Loki takes the Tesseract, so they go back even further back in time into New Jersey, where there's Pym particles and the Tesseract at the same time, and they get it. They get them both, and funny stuff happens, and Tony Stark meets his parents, meets his dad. And that doesn't raise any more questions now, does it, right? You meet your dad in the past, but why, though? I get it, it's a good character building moment. It was pretty neato, but it felt so like Back to the Future-y, right? Like, I thought that at any point in time, he'd be like, "You're my dad, and I love you," and then disappear. And also, how is Howard Stark at all okay with being buddies with this dude if we know canonically if he's this like egomaniacal, self-centered, self-assured genius who doesn't care about other people except for himself, and that's, or his family, or who cares? There's been so many different ways in the comics that they can pick every single one of them, and then that works out for you. Either way, Iron Man tells his dad that he's going to be a good father and gives him a tip that his dad gave him. He gives him like a word of advice that his dad gave him. And then his dad doesn't show any knowledge of him knowing it. Like it's not like his dad told him. It causes the question of, wait a second, did Howard Stark tell that to Tony Stark when he was little? Because Tony Stark, when he was older, went back in time and told him that, then how Tony Stark only knows it because his dad told him, because he told him in the past. That's like the Phineas and Ferb, like, oh, this is how you solve it. Take this wrench and fix it. How did you know how to fix it? Oh, because our future selves told us how to do it. And then you just get an endless cycle of, where did it come from? How did you get it? Well, past time. Yes. So Iron Man gave his own dad parenting advice that his dad gave Iron Man. But Iron Man gave it to his dad, but it never happened in our timeline. This is in a new timeline, unless it did. Therefore, if this happened in our timeline, everything else happened in our timeline. Every other thing happened. Loki disappeared in our timeline, but also didn't disappear because we see him. This just raises way too many questions. Way too many of them. The whole time travel is stupid. Again, if Rocket Raccoon removes the ether from Natalie Portman's body, does that happen in the film? Because there's no guards going through and chasing them in the other film. There's no like alarm going off. But if that happened, then Iron Man never learned the hints he gave, the parenting advice he gave to his dad. Too many questions, and none of them should be answered because it's a film, guys. So, time travel is stupid unless you're specifically going to deal with every single context of time travel. And time travel can get really hard with just going back in time and grabbing a sandwich. That's problematic on its own, let alone traveling back in time and traveling even more back in time and taking the biggest MacGuffins from the whole universe into your own universe. And then bringing the whole Thanos in with you. Does nobody ask questions about time travel? Like, I'm pretty sure everybody has different theories about time travel, about it's impossible to change the things that happened in the past. Therefore, if you go back in time, you cause those things to happen. But also, if you don't go back in time, you cause those things to happen. Either way. Or the causation and correlation, which means that if you go back in time to change something, your timeline is still going on and moving on with you as if you had disappeared, aka Zelda timeline, right? It's stupid, man. It's dumb, and they don't like you asking any questions. So it's kind of like my problem with the film. If you don't think about it, it's an extremely fun and enjoyable film, and it's greatly written. But I think Infinity War was way better, like much better, story-wise, character-wise. It made more sense. It was more enjoyable. As much as I disliked the Vision-Wanda relationship, it was still captivating and enjoyable. But in here, it's like everything seems so like rushed and trying to be polished. It gave me really big Justice League vibes, like near the end where there's this giant battle and the heroes are fighting. Like it gave me the whole Battle of the Five Armies thing, you know? I don't know, man. It's confusing. I enjoyed the film, but I'm only giving it a 6 out of 10. 5 points were lost because time travel, and then 1 point was gained because they punched Captain Marvel really hard. They punched her into the credits, man. Yeah, I don't know. It's ridiculous. They get all the Power Stones, but Natasha has to sacrifice herself. But Hawkeye wants to sacrifice himself, and they have this huge fight about who gets to sacrifice themselves. This makes me wonder, because you have to give up the thing you love the most. None of them are giving up the thing they love the most unless they're both the most extremely self-centered things in the universe. Right, I get it saying, kill me instead. But jumping off of your own volition is not giving up what you love the most unless what you love the most is the other person. And by giving it up, you mean I'm giving up my life I'm giving up the opportunity to be with them. Therefore, I get the Infinity Stone, but I'm also dead. Or unless you're like, I only love myself, which is the thing that I love the most, so I'm gonna kill myself. Therefore, I give up the thing I love the most, and then I still get the Infinity Stone. Because I think it would have to be Hawkeye literally letting go. He has to push her off. He has to go throw her like Thanos did. If Thanos was like, if Gamora killed herself by throwing herself off to prevent Thanos from getting whatever he wanted, I don't think it would have worked that way, because Thanos never had the opportunity to let go. So that raises some more questions about how the Infinity Stones work, but rest assured they get it, and she's not coming back. Thank goodness. I mean, her whole character has been nothing, and then she dies. Thank goodness that the guys with ending contracts don't live. There's no consequence to this. The guys whose careers are over have their die. What's the big deal, right? There's no consequence to this film. It's just things happen that you expected to happen. What else happens? They get back. Nebula gets kidnapped because did Nebula not tell anybody that her brain is connected to a network that her other brain, her other self, her past self, her doppelganger is still connected to? Did the network disappear when they killed Thanos? So she thought she was free, but did nobody think about a cyborg lady connected to the cloud would have any issues going back in time and connecting to that cloud again? Like, either way, she gets kidnapped. She tries to convince past Nebula and past Gamora to help them. Gamora is like, ooh, I may be able to use this for my own benefit, but Nebula takes the little bronze-looking stuff from her head and pretends to be past Nebula and goes back in time with them. And they have all the Infinity Stones, and they're ready to create the Infinity Gauntlet. And Nebula is ready to time travel in Thanos. So what happens? They create the Infinity Gauntlet and they snap their fingers and everybody comes back. Everybody who disappeared at that point in time comes back at this point in time 5 years later. Imagine that you're married and your significant other is dusted away. It's horrifying and you move on. 5 years, you learn to move on. They're not coming back. It's what's done is done. Everybody else has suffered, so you're moving on. And then you get married again in those 5 years, and you have a kid. And now your significant other comes out of nowhere, 5 years younger than you. But now you're married and have a kid with somebody else, but your past wife came back. Does nobody ask questions about what the problem is? I get Iron Man wants to keep his daughter, but they have the Infinity Gauntlet. Sacrifice Hulk's other arm. He's got an insane healing factor. He can probably tank it, you know? Or sacrifice Hawkeye. He is willing to sacrifice himself for the good of humanity and doesn't even care if he wants to, if he can see his family again up until the end where he, they snap and everybody comes back and he gets a call, but he's 5 years older. This raises so many questions. So many questions. So many questions. Okay. Nebula brings back Thanos from the past, which raises even more questions. If Thanos died, which he does, in the future, before he gets all the Infinity Stones, there was a timeline where Thanos never happened. So there's a timeline where each individual Infinity Stone is missing separately, and every single permutation of it is combined. So there are timelines where 2 Infinity Stones and 3 and 4 and 5 are missing, and each one is missing, and they're all missing, and none of them are missing, and Thanos is gone, and Thanos is not there, but why? Why so many questions? And there are timelines where they return the Infinity Stones before they take them. So there are 2 Infinity Stones at one point in time. And there are timelines where Thanos takes those 2 Infinity Stones and has two Time Stones. And he's got 2 Infinity Gauntlets. There's so many questions that time travel raises that they're not willing to answer, and they just expect you to turn off your brain and rock along with it, which kind of is okay if you don't think about this being the biggest film in the past, 20 years, 30 years. Like, this thing has shattered records. I think it's already top 10 most grossing film of all time, and it's been just one day after the opening weekend, right? It's already insane. This is going to be the biggest earning film ever, and it'll probably be the biggest film ever for years to come, right? But again, it felt so polishedly forced. Like, it's not even polished in the sense of like things are nice, neat, and too clean. It just felt like they try to make a Justice League messy plot, and they made a plot that was messy. As long as you don't ask questions, as long as you don't think about this film, it's gonna be a pretty good film. Kind of like The Last Jedi. Like, people came out of it and they're like, wow, that was a good film. Wait a second, did I only like it because it looked cool and it sounded cool, or did I like it because the story was good? And then you get the whole Last Jedi problem. Yeah, I don't know, man. Everybody comes back, so I'm assuming that Doctor Strange, they don't instantly come back, because Doctor Strange has to go around telling them what happened in the past 5 years, because he saw the films 14 bajillion times already. And Thanos is there and bombs everybody, destroying War Machine's suit he has to crawl through to save Rocket Raccoon. And then Hulk's there, and then Ant-Man has to go and save them by becoming really big. But Thor took Mjolnir. Why? I get it. He wanted to see if he's worthy, but return it. You have an axe. Your axe was made by you. You had this whole emotional conflict about not having the hammer and having to move on. Or are there no consequences in this film? He takes the hammer, great. He's got a hammer and an axe, and he's fighting with both of them. And Iron Man and Thor and Captain America are fighting against Thanos, but Thanos has no Infinity Stones, so it should be an easy fight, right? Because they almost completely killed the guy last time, but now he's got a double-bladed sword. So, big yikes, dude. The double-bladed sword, which is still capable of chunking out pieces of Captain America's shield, meaning that it's a very powerful sword, dude. So they're fighting. So many things happen. Oh, they're like destroyed. Chunky Thor is like Lightning Boy now. They're fighting all the hammers, all the things, and everybody gets beat but Captain America. The dude with the insanely powerful armor, who was the only guy who had a chance against Infinity Gauntlet wielding Thanos and a literal god, cannot compete against no Infinity Gauntlet Thanos, but Captain America can. Captain America, who had a hard time fighting Captain America, and we know Thanos is stronger than Captain America. So he's doing it. He's chunking off the shield, right? And then he grabs the hammer. And that's where half of the audience went, whoa, that's great. And the other half went, whoa, that's stupid. And I'm in the middle like, we've seen this before. Make something new in the comics, from the comic. You know, take an original idea. Right? But I get it. It's a comic book film, so you're going to take stuff directly from the comics, including everything that doesn't make sense from the comics. That's why I like them films, because they took things that make sense from the comics and took their time to make things that made more sense. Thank goodness there was no Thanos copter. That would have been ridiculous. Or maybe the only thing that would have saved this film is if there was a Thanos copter. I don't know, dude. So, canonically, sometimes Captain America has the hammer, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he do, sometimes he don't. Who cares, man? By this point, if you're still asking questions, you're wrong, right? Everybody shows up. Everybody shows up. Captain America has the hammer. Everybody's there. And this is the moment where everybody cheers because they saw Black Panther. And Black Panther appears and everybody cheers, and all the other heroes appear and everybody cheers, but it looks like the Battle of the Five Armies, including with crappy CGI, you know. It's like big whoops. Okay, everybody's here against a ginormous army, Thanos. But this is everybody who got beat by Thanos last time. But Thanos, everybody got beat by Thanos last time, and this Thanos is a fresh Thanos with a ginormous army, but no Infinity Gauntlet. But Hawkeye has the Infinity Gauntlet, but Nebula takes the Infinity Gauntlet, but they kill past Nebula. Now, is this past Nebula? Because if you come to the conclusion that everything that happened in this film has happened in the past, then Nebula is dead, and Gamora doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Gamora never existed, so she couldn't be sacrificed, so Thanos could never get the Soul Stone, so the Soul Stone was never a problem. And Nebula is dead, because Nebula killed Nebula, so you get a paradox. You went back in time to kill yourself. But then again, you can argue causation and correlation. Nebula was taken back in time, killed her past self. But in Nebula's timeline, then nobody ever killed her in the past, so she's still alive. But this Nebula killed the other Nebula in the past, so she's dead. Why? I want to ask questions, man. There are so many problems that arise from thinking about this film. Because time travel is dumb unless you're gonna spend hours like in a novel, going in depth into how all the consequences work so that you remove any doubt in the reader's mind of any of the things that happen. But no, what we get is dumb. Why? Why? I mean, I get it. You are free to enjoy this film. You are obviously not me. If you are me, then you predicted the film's plot. Maybe you didn't predict that Hulk was going to be the first one to snap, but you did predict that Iron Man was going to be the last one to snap. Right? Time travel is dumb if you're not going to spend your time trying to fix it. And nobody spends any time at all. Again, Captain Marvel shows up, so when you think, oh, maybe there is going to be some consequences to this film right at the last 30 minutes of the film. No. It was like, I will express to you how I felt. I was a bit, on edge, like, oh my gosh, are they actually going to do something cool? And then Captain Marvel shows, and I'm like, okay, well, movie's over. We've got 20 minutes left. What happens? Something like that. I don't know exactly what the time was, but I was checking my watch all the time. Every time Captain Marvel showed up, I kind of gave it a sigh of like, well, here it is, the most powerful being in the universe, who we just last saw beat up Thanos really easily. So she's beating up on Thanos, and Thanos is beating her up. They somehow get the Infinity Gauntlet. He takes it. They had this relay race trying to get it back in time so that they could return it. But no, Thanos gets it. Captain Marvel does the America thing and like holds his fingers, and she like about to rip his fingers off. Like if I were Captain Marvel, I wouldn't be holding them back. I'd be pulling them out, right? She's getting powered up, and Thanos headbutts her. She doesn't flinch. And that's where half of the audience went, whoa, dude, that's crazy. And the other half went, oh, okay, that's kind of cringe. But they do that, and Thanos smartly grabs the Power Stone and punches her real hard. Raises the question, if you wield the Infinity Gauntlet, does that automatically make every stone take its, activate its power? Or, because that's what happened with Hulk. He put on the gauntlet and instantly it started like consuming him, right? But Thanos, he puts on the gauntlet and it only affects him when he snaps. Right? Because it's not like a... But then Iron Man takes all the Infinity Stones and it only affects him when he snaps. So, do the powers of the Infinity Stones only happen when you close your fist? Right? But if that's so, Hulk would have had his fist closed to act. Too many questions, no reasons why anybody should answer them, because it's a film and you shouldn't think about it. Captain Marvel was advertised to be the biggest reason they were going to beat Thanos, which is total crap. That's not what happened, not at all. Captain Marvel could have disappeared and we could have had Iron Man fight, do his fight with Thanos rather than Captain Marvel, and nothing of consequences would have been lost. Maybe we would have kept the stakes high and felt, the need for survival and fighting for, right? Rather than have the most powerful being in the universe just pop in out of nowhere. She's been gone for 80% of the film, and then she appears out of nowhere and Deus Ex Machina's her way through. Well, they also had this whole, like women power empowerment moment, which could be misconstrued as cringy or as women empowerment, depending on how you view the film, right? And obviously we're gonna get, if you criticize this, then you're a man baby, or if you unapologetically believe this is the best thing, then you're an SJW. What about the fact that it felt forced? Were these girls not fighting at all? Did they only appear here to help Captain Marvel, the most powerful being in the universe, who literally we just saw destroy the ship on her own? She just flew right through it and the ship crashed. Why does she need any help? She does not need help. All these other people would be better off protecting the injured, or killing the monsters, or fighting Thanos all together. We could have had a whole women empowerment thing while Captain Marvel is flying through, because we know she can't be killed by the grunts. Flying through, trying to take the thing back in time to prevent Thanos from getting it. But they have to protect her rather than having like a giant battle against Thanos where all the women like are fighting for their lives and the lives of the people they care about, like the men did. But rather than that, we have them protect the most powerful being in the universe who doesn't need protection. I was thinking about this when I saw it. When they're like, when Peter Parker's like, oh, how are you going to get there safely? She should have done the whole thing. Is that a personal attack or something? Because she's that powerful. She's right on through, kill everybody, no problems. She can just blast everything. If she did like her blasts, her like photon blast or whatever her power is, if she actually did that and spun in a circle, she would kill everybody. That's how easy it would have been. But, you know, whatever. Don't think about a film. Don't think about it. It's the best film ever. You have to like it. I do like it. It's a fun film. It's enjoyable. The action is cool. But like there are so many problems and questions that nobody wants to answer. Or nobody needs you to answer. Who cares, man? It's weird. Either way, they get it, and Captain Marvel gets punched into the end of the film, and nobody sees her again, so much for being the most important character. But Iron Man has a fight with Thanos, and the most predictable thing happened. I tend to predict things in films when it becomes really obvious, like your gut feeling of like this is going to happen, and then it happens. It happens a lot, right? Films are very predictable. And most of the times, right? Then you get M. Night Shyamalan, and then it becomes predictable in the sense that it's unpredictable. So you predict there's going to be a twist, and there's a twist. But it was like Iron Man's fighting against Thanos, and Thanos punches him real hard, and he's going to snap. And then I swear to you, it's another one of those half of the cinema. One half said, like they went to the other person and went, he doesn't have the stones. And then the other half, when he snapped and nothing happened, we're like, oh my god, he doesn't have the stones, that's insane. Like, how are you ever surprised by that? This is Endgame. It's not Endgame in the sense of it's the end of a saga, so Thanos could win and reboot the universe. That could be great. That could be a good way to introduce the X-Men, but no. What we get is a cheap cop-out to avoid any of the consequences, right? Wouldn't it be cool if one of the phases was Thanos created a universe where all of the Marvel things are combined? So we've got the X-Men and Deadpool and the Avengers all together. Wouldn't that be neato? But no. Iron Man took the Infinity Stones, which perfectly fine, you know, it's his technology, his gauntlet, and he puts it onto his arm. And then the question rises, how does he have time to say I'm Iron Man like he did in the first film, when he put on the gauntlet, his body began to be consumed? How does Iron Man have the whole he's a celestial thing going for him? Because that's happened in the comics before, but not in here. As far as we know, he is actually Howard Stark's child. Is Howard Stark a celestial? But if he did snap his fingers and he is a celestial, how is he at all dying? So how does he have time to say anything? Maybe he should say it before the Infinity Stones are there? How does Tony Stark have the power to snap his fingers? Well, Hulk was struggling for a long time, and we saw him struggle, and his arm is still crippled. I don't understand all of this. I don't understand There's just so many questions, and none of them are going to be answered. And they're probably going to be answered like they do in Star Wars. You should just read the book. The book is like a better version. We see all the problems people have, and we just write the solutions into the book. Yeah, Iron Man dies, and we have reverse Peter Parker fading away. Mr. Stark, please don't go. Nothing of consequence was lost. Sure, it was sad to see Iron Man go, but it was cathartic to see the guy who started all of it end it. But he didn't end it. He just brought everybody back into 5 years after they die. So everybody who's moved on with their lives is everybody who's moved on with their lives has now the past literally thrust upon them 5 years younger than them. Again, we already talked about how that can be a problem. But this is all because Iron Man was too selfish to say, let's just reboot it. Kill Thanos, let's go back in time and kill Thanos, make him disappear. So that, what should have happened is Hulk snaps his fingers, they go back in time with the Infinity Gauntlet to go against Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, right? Or Thanos before the Infinity Gauntlet, rather than Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet coming to the future. And then you have Iron Man do the snappy snaps to do the same thing, but that would make it so that all the things still make sense, because there's got to be another film of... Wait a second, there's more... This would make more sense if they went back in time to fight Thanos, rather than Thanos going to the future to fight them. But this still makes no sense. Nothing in this movie makes sense. They did time travel really wrong. They did it really wrong, and they didn't think about it, and this film is going to make so much money, and there are so many people who love it because their favorite character appears out of nowhere and they have a good time to cheer for them. Scarlet Witch had a cool moment where she dents the Thanos' sword, and it's cool because you get to see a glimpse of her full power. But that's it. That's like Thanos dies. He gets whisked away, and rather than crying like Peter Parker did, he just kind of sits and takes it. He's like, it looks like he's sad that he couldn't save the universe his own way, sad that he was defeated by the people who don't understand that he's a good guy. But then they beat everybody, and Tony Stark is dead. So the reason he messed up every timeline, by bringing all the people who were dead and gone back to life wherever they were at the time that they were whisked away, right? So Nick Fury was in the middle of the road when he was whisked away. Imagine a car just goes through when he's brought back. Nick Fury's dead. Does nobody ask these questions? Does Stephen Strange know where everybody in the universe is so that he can teleport them to safety? Did Captain Marvel do that? What is going on, dude? Did half of the... I'm so confused, dude. It is so confusing because I don't get it. Either way, let's not think about all the messy plot holes, and let's think about the next one that's coming up. Captain America has to go back in time to return all the stones, and I'm thinking, we're gonna have a cool reverse heist thing where the first one was they had to find a way to sneak them out, and this is they have to find a way to sneak them in, and it's gonna be cool. Captain America time travel adventures. No, they just do it. They don't tell you how. They don't. show it. You know how they say show don't tell? This was just don't even bother showing or telling. It doesn't matter. The movie's over. He's retired. He misses his time travel thing, so I guess he's probably just he like took off the thing and went and had a life. And that's exactly what he did with Peggy, which again, so many questions are arriving from this, and we discussed it at the beginning. So many questions from Captain America time traveling back to live his life as not Captain America, but a guy who looks exactly, sounds exactly, and is dating the girl that Captain America used to date. Nobody asked any questions. Sure, Peggy at the end said, "Yes, I found a man to live with. Haha, I found a love, and it was you from the future." That's such a Doctor Who thing to do. And wait a second. If Captain America went to the future, if Captain America was frozen in time, and he's like, what, 70-something years old? Okay, he's turned 20. Okay, he's 21 in the film. And he spends, I don't know, like 70 years. So he's about 100. Let's say 100 even. He's 100 even years old. And he goes back in time and lives for the next 75 years or something like that, right? So Captain America has lived for 175 years. Is he 175 years old, or is he only 5 years older than he would have been, or 4 years older than he would have been? I'm so confused, man. But then again, why bother asking? Captain America creates a ton of plot holes by traveling back in time, not showing us what he does. And he comes back and he's an old man. He's lived his life and he had a good time. He moved on. But what if Captain America was like one of the guys that got snapped away? Future past Captain America was snapped away. Like, do people even bother to think about this? If he goes back in time and he lives up until this point, he could have been snapped away. So he's 5 years younger than he would have been, but he's still like 100 years old, 165 years old. Nobody asks questions. Nobody bother ask these questions because they don't matter. Yeah, and he gives the shield to Sam Wilson, which we know in the comics turns into Captain America most of the times. So we've got a new Captain America that everybody saw coming. Nobody was surprised about this. And just think about the fact that Tony Stark screwed everything up timeline-wise and people-wise, risking needless universal lives. Lives throughout the universe could have been lost by bringing them back literally where they were last time that they were snapped away. So many people died at that moment. So many people were brought back and there's no longer a bridge there and you're gone. Or you get run over by a car, or that is now, there's so many problems that why bother answering, right? So everybody's gone, but everybody's back at the time, 5 years after the fact, because Tony Stark cannot not have his daughter, which is understandable. But also he could have just gone back in time to when the snap happened, revert the snap instantly, and kill Thanos. So he did his thing, but it only lasted for like a minute, and then they kill him, and he gets to live his life again. Right? I'm so confused, man. None of this makes sense. This is so... this is a movie that you're not allowed to think. Don't think about it. So much for being the end of a saga. If you really think that this film neatly ties up the Avengers universe and ends it's the final chapter of a book, it's not. It's another chapter in the continuation of the universe. It's just that they're killing off the characters whose contracts are over so that they can get new characters and make more money for the rest of Infinity. Infinity War, more like Infinity marketing. Yeah, so all the characters that are old are either retired or dead. And any character that was cool and fresh, like Thor, has a new life as the Asgardian of the universe, of the galaxy, technically speaking. Asgardians of the galaxy. And I thought this was gonna be a nice, clean ending. You know, like, don't bother setting up anything else, because you could have just, you know, you can just reboot and make it new. But no, you've got to make sure to set up the next 25 billion films for the rest of our lives. And make it extremely messy and confusing in the process, if you think about it. Either way, it's just kind of frustrating trying to deal with all of this. And the film was marketed as the end of a saga, and it's more like the Adobe After Effects video transition, the wipe. It's just a wipe. It's just a wipe transition. Yeah, Thor is Gamora is past Gamora, who never fell in love with Quill, and Quill is now very frustrated because he needs to get Gamora. But wait a second. If we're saying that the things that happen in the film already happened, then there is no way that they can get the Soul Stone. How do you return the Soul Stone? Natasha died to get the Soul Stone. Is there a way that you can just undo it? Be like, oh, I did my thing here, take the Soul Stone back, and can I get my girlfriend back? That's not something that can happen. So what do you do with a Soul Stone? Unless you fully destroy it. Are you gonna give it to like, who are you what is... Just give it to Thanos, right? Just be like, hey Thanos, sorry we beat you in the future, here, take the Soul Stone, do with it whatever you want. Man, it was just meh. I give this film a meh.